Point of order, Richard Tice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I put on record of the House, with your permission, the sad passing yesterday of Patrick O'Flynn, a journalist, a political journalist, well known to many honourable members of this House. He died after a short battle with cancer. He was a lobby journalist for some 20 years, spending many, many days, weeks and months in the press gallery above. He will be much missed, and can I pass on the condolences of all honourable members to his wife, Carol Ann, and his two children.
Can I say I'm grateful to the honourable member for his point of order. Patrick was a long-serving and well-respected member of the lobby. I'm sure the whole House will wish to join me in sending our condolences to his family for somebody who was taken so young. Point of order, Kirsty.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm seeking your guidance on how I get a response from the Department for Work and Pensions. I've written to the Secretary of State in relation to one of my constituents who was told by a first-tier tribunal that DWP must pay him, backdated to January 2020. We've been chasing the department for over a month for a response. This tribunal decision was in February. Can he advise how I can get a response?
I think the honourable lady knows exactly what she's going to do next. But I would say she's certainly put on the record. I hope the bench has heard. I do find it pretty appalling that government departments aren't answering all members of all political parties on time to their correspondence. Because in the end, the backbenchers are answerable to their constituents. And if they can't get the reply from departments, they're letting down the members. So I hope they are listening and answering as we speak. Right. Let us move on to 10-minute rule motion. Just let it clear a little. We come to 10-minute rule motion. Luke Charters.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that leave be given to bring in a bill to require the Secretary of State to publish an assessment of the effectiveness of current regulation of the debt collection in civil enforcement sectors, and to report to Parliament on the potential merits of statutory regulation of those sectors and for connected purposes. Today, I introduce the Regulation of Bailiffs Assessment and Report Bill. We are in this place to speak up when others can't, to put right what's clearly wrong. This bill, to get a grip on rogue bailiffs, does exactly that. Today, I want to share some truly heartbreaking stories of vulnerable people left absolutely petrified in their own homes, disabled people terrified that vital equipment could be wrongfully taken from them. It's time that despicable practices in the enforcement sector come to an end. For the thousands across the country who've suffered serious injustices at the hands of cold-hearted rogue bailiffs, those who've brought shame to their own industry. I came into politics to fight for social justice, and that's why I'm proud to be a Labour MP. But nothing has fuelled that fight more than hearing from those crushed by the worst elements of the enforcement sector. Their pain, their stories have imprinted themselves on me with lasting force, and it's for them that I'm absolutely determined to change the law. Let me first thank Step Change, and particularly Sophie Morris in the gallery today. I also want to give credit to the Enforcement Conduct Board, known as the ECB, who voluntarily regulate 95% of the sector. In my view, they should oversee this regulation, and at present they issue guidelines for the enforcement sector, but that is the issue, of course. These guidelines lack legal heft. Mr. Speaker, the Statute of Marlborough, passed in 1267 during the reign of Henry III, is one of England's oldest pieces of legislation, still partly enforced today. It shows that even 750 years ago, people were thinking about the need for fair debt collection, and yet here we are today, faced with the same challenges. As a former regulator at the FCA, I understand the importance of setting clear standards. The last changes around enforcement law were made around a decade ago. This introduced a three-stage process and stronger protections for vulnerable people. But despite these changes, aggressive practices and inconsistent standards still exist. That's why the independent ECB was created in 2022 to voluntarily oversee the sector. And according to Citizens' Advice, 1 in 3 people who have had contact with a bailiff have had experienced behaviour that breaks MOJ expectations. And even among the bailiffs that are regulated under their current scope, 1% of visits were deemed too aggressive by the ECB. And by the way, that would equate to hundreds, if not thousands, of visits a year. That's why we need a fair and proportionate debt collection system. Mr. Speaker, I want to tell you about Michael's story. He's an inspirational chap who I welcomed to Parliament last week. Michael's story began with a horrific motorbike accident that completely upended his life. He sustained injuries that made him unable to walk or stand. And after a lengthy spell in hospital, getting by on sick pay alone, he lost his job. During this time, he received a letter demanding a full year's council tax to be paid at once. And by the way, we must end that punitive rule that's triggered when someone misses just one council tax payment. And I'm grateful to Martin Lewis for campaigning on that, and I welcome the government's consultation too. But back to Michael's story. Bailiffs were sent to collect the council tax. He was at home, bedridden and unable to move. The bailiffs visited repeatedly, but he couldn't hear their knocks or get out of bed. Despite this, they unfairly added extra charges to his debt for their visits. He was left without carpet, with a broken bed and a broken boiler. On top of all of this, he was preparing to become a dad. What should have been a proud and exciting moment of his life became one of immense stress and fear. Fear that the bailiffs, given that they had nothing else left to take, might seize his baby daughter's toys, or her changing table, or even her cot. And as a father, I could sense the deeply personal pain behind that fear, the heartbreak of possibly failing her in the one way he still felt he could provide. Michael went from being a homeowner with a near-perfect credit score to nearly losing everything. And I'm pleased to say that he's back on his feet, and although he's still paying the debt off, he's hoping to clear it soon. He's doing well, and I took him out onto the terrace last week in the sunshine, and we reflected on just how unfair bailiff practices had added to his hardship. I also met Adam recently, and Adam got into debt through falling behind on council tax and card repayments after losing an agency job and struggling to find new work. His experience, like many others, began with letters and ended with visits to his home. As is often the case with rogue bailiffs, the visits were aggressive and intimidating. One forced his foot into the door, threatening to come in. And of course, this breaks virtually every rule in the book. Adam told me it was like someone was trying to boot down the door. He immediately told the bailiff that he had a disability and was classed as vulnerable. The bailiff said he didn't care and would take away Adam's belongings regardless. The bailiff saying he didn't care? What cruelty. Mr. Speaker, the enforcement system is broken and punishes those already struggling. When rules allow such passive, cruel indifference to people in crisis, it's not just about one bailiff in one moment. It's about the sort of society we want to be. Adam had government-funded equipment for his disability, a specially adapted device. Again, the bailiff said he didn't care and would take it anyway. Adam contacted Step Change. The advisors had helped him come up with a payment plan, which the bailiffs wrongfully refused. He became genuinely terrified to be at home on his own. Adam's made progress with his debts, and again I welcomed him to Parliament last week alongside Michael. Both of their cases are littered with dozens of examples of unregulated rogue bailiff activity. The ECB do a good job, but there are many bailiffs not in their perimeter. Statutory regulation would enable the ECB to be even more firm and drive up standards. So it's time, Mr. Speaker, for the government to fix the regulation of the enforcement sector. Mr. Speaker, I don't want anyone in this country to have to worry about losing their disability equipment or their children's toys. No one ever should have to face the same hardship. 14